Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast. We are headed into our final segment of the day where we are going to be previewing the second round series between the Knicks and Pacers and Nuggets and Timberwolves. I'm going to be giving my gut reaction picks. I really don't feel great about either one of these series, but for the sake of content, we're going to do it. We'll say, did pretty well with the predictions in round one. I don't want to toot my own horn or anything and talk about it too much, but doing pretty well for ourselves. March Madness was very rough in terms of predictions, so getting the wins in round one did at least feel good. But Knicks Pacers, I feel like the biggest thing in this series is going to be sort of what we talked about earlier, is the fact that the Pacers are a much deeper team than the Nuggets are, and they obviously love to run. And the Knicks are a team that, you look at the minutes that a lot of their starters have played, it's not like they are going to be unconditioned or anything, or aren't going to be able to keep up with the Pacers, but specifically when you do look at Jalen Brunson, and again, I'm not saying that anybody on the Knicks is incapable of being able to play this way, but if the Pacers are pressing him full court and they are running in transition frequently, I do feel like tired legs can definitely catch up with the Knicks in this situation, and they really don't have much wiggle room in terms of other bench options, where right now the only players coming off of the bench right now for them are Mitchell Robinson and Deuce McBride for the most part. Now, we did see Precious Achiuwa earlier in the series versus the 76ers, but he was basically played out of that one, and I'm not really sure what other options they are going to have. Alec Burks just, fell off the face of the map. Maybe he's somebody who could miraculously work his way into the rotation if they needed him, but I feel like the pace is going to be a massive story for them, and the physicality as well, because the Knicks obviously are the team that they have a little bit more veteran talent, even though Pascal Siakam has more playoff experience really than anybody on the Knicks. But outside of that, the Pacers obviously don't really have a very experienced group in terms of postseason play. Now, I'll say this, they don't have the experience, and I feel like the Knicks, game one, are probably going to punch the Pacers in the mouth. That's what we saw in this past series when they faced off against the Milwaukee Bucks, because of the fact that it takes adjustments when you come to this next level of heightened play. But I thought the Pacers and Rick Carlisle did a tremendous job of being able to overcome some of their early struggles. And like I said, even closing this series out, granted, the Bucks were very short-handed, I do feel like this was an opportunity where things definitely could have gone sour for them, that they could have gotten in their own heads and let this one slip away from them, but they were definitely rallied off of the home court advantage. I think Indiana, I mentioned this before too, so I'm not trying to harp on it too much. Indiana doesn't get enough credit for. It does seem like the fans there are fully into it. They haven't been able to have a Pacers team to really buy into to this level in a handful of years, and it seems like the Pacers are now sort of arrived. They also feel like a team that's maybe a year away in my eyes, but that being said, I do give them a very real chance in this series to be able to knock off the Knicks, because of the fact that they're definitely deeper. Now, Jalen Brunson, once again, is going to be the best player in this series, and it is hard to overlook that by any means, but I would say that the Pacers are a little bit more equipped to be able to actually face up with them. Andrew Nembhard is somebody who doesn't necessarily get talked about all that much from a national perspective, but they are legitimately, he is a legitimate good point of attack defender, and he doesn't necessarily get the credit he deserves, and he was feisty in this series in terms of getting into it with a couple different players on the Milwaukee Bucks. He wasn't scared to, get into it with anybody. And I feel like he can come out and end up showing some fight in this one, but ultimately the Pacers the Knicks are significant favorites in this one, minus 235. I feel like I would have to lean with the Knicks in terms of the Pacers can just be a little bit inconsistent when it comes to the defense. I feel like that is where they're still gettable. Even though, as much as I talked about Andrew Nembhard as a point of attack defender, TJ McConnell, I gave my flowers to earlier in the show as well. But at the same time, I don't know. I do feel like, again, I'm sort of struggling with this as we talk it out here. I would lean with the Knicks, but I don't feel entirely confident about it because I think that the Pacers can hurt you offensively in different ways, but they also don't have that go-to scorer that the Knicks defense, I feel like, is going to be able to step up in this one yet again. That sort of feels like the way that the Knicks have to win is by playing really good defense and Jalen Brunson just sort of banking on other teams aren't going to be able to stop him when he is feeling himself. And I just don't think that the Pacers, especially since the regression, if you want to call it, of Tyrese Halliburton during the course of the year in terms of him not being able to be a takeover scorer like he has now. Who knows? Maybe he's getting healthier by the day. We've seen him dealing with this back injury. I don't know if I'm necessarily there with him, and I just feel like the Knicks, this is going to be a very physical series, which I do believe favors the Knicks, but I'm definitely not ruling the Pacers out in this one. I feel like there's different value if you are into betting. Plus 195 for the Pacers isn't bad value in my eyes, but other series, sort of as I'm calling it at least, the de facto Western Conference Finals between the Denver Nuggets and Minnesota Timberwolves. I believe that these are the two best teams in the Western Conference, and either one of whoever comes out of this series, I think as long as they're fully healthy, are going to advance to the NBA Finals. The key for this series is going to be the matchup of the big men. If there is going to be any team that is capable of sort of shutting down Jokic to whatever level you even can shut down Jokic, it is the Timberwolves in this instance. Now, Rudy Gobert, obviously he himself can at least slow down Jokic in terms of those instances with the one-on-one scoring. They have Karl Anthony Towns, of course, and they have Naz Reid off of the bench, so they have a variety of different options that they can throw out at Jokic, but it's really going to be on the perimeter defenders, and especially just making sure that they are actually connected, which we saw against Phoenix. They are tremendous in terms of one-on-one defense, but the Nuggets bring this extra angle of being able to move the ball around a lot and make the passes that you aren't expecting. Now, part of the benefit of having these multiple big options for Minnesota is it does sort of, at least in theory, eliminate, as long as Aaron Gordon isn't knocking down threes and he has not had a good three-point shooting season really as a whole. I believe his numbers are sub 30. 29% from three this season. So unless he sort of finds it in himself somehow, it feels like the Timberwolves can eliminate that sort of baseline backdoor cutting that is very prominent when it comes to Aaron Gordon himself, but the bench unit as well. It seems like Christian Brown always sort of lives off of those backdoor cuts as well. Peyton Watson can be involved in it as well, but I think that the Timberwolves have a defense that in theory should be able to give the Denver Nuggets problems, and that does sort of concern me if I am a Nuggets fan. This is a situation where it seems like one of these unique offensive attack strategies that they've really been able to thrive off of might not necessarily be there. Now, for the Timberwolves, Karl Anthony Towns has to stay out of foul trouble because he kept putting himself in jeopardy in this series against the Suns, and ultimately it didn't affect the final results because the Suns were just a mess. But for the Timberwolves, they are a significantly better team when they have Karl Anthony Towns available for them. And Anthony Edwards said it in a press conference after, I believe it was game 4, could have been game 3, but it was when he was on the podium with Karl Anthony Towns, and he was saying to him, stop fouling, because in the second halves when Karl Anthony Towns is actually available, because there were a couple instances, I think it was game 2 maybe, I have my notes in front of me, I can look into it, but in whatever game it was, he ended up picking up 3 fouls in the first quarter, the third one coming in the final seconds of it. And it was just stupid because he went out of his way, basically. He was along the perimeter and he crashed in from the 3-point line to run somebody over and pick up his third foul that had him sitting basically the entire second quarter. And it can just be so frustrating with him. It was running over Devin Booker. This was in game 2. So it's just, when he's actually available for them, it adds this other layer to their offense, and they're going to need him defensively as well. I know that Karl Anthony Towns hasn't necessarily been known for his defense over the course of his career, but I feel like he's steadily improving. It seems like we're seeing the maturity with him in real time in terms of playing less selfish basketball, putting his body on the line. He needs to be available, though, especially in this type of a series where I don't think that there is a very big margin for error in terms of the Timberwolves side of this whole thing. But I'm going to lean with the Denver Nuggets, even though from a matchup wise, I really don't love it. But I don't think I can pick against the Denver Nuggets. Going to be curious to see what version of Jamal Murray we get, especially in that 2-man game. Because we saw some inconsistencies with him, but at the same time, some red flags with the Timberwolves during the regular season is that their offense late in games could get a little bit clunky. For the Timberwolves, and for the Nuggets, that is the opposite of the case. They are so great at executing in the clutch, and it really didn't feel like the Timberwolves were even put to the test in that type of crunch time situation, because specifically in that third quarter, they were typically running away from the Phoenix Suns. Now, I know game 4 was a little bit closer down the stretch. Anthony Edwards was in takeover mode. But that's kind of what it feels like they are reliant on, is Anthony Edwards just putting on his superhero cape and going to work. Whereas I think that the Nuggets are a little bit more well-distributed, plus that 2-man game of Murray and Jokic. They can run so much out of it, and they are so dominant. So I'm going to lean with the Nuggets. I'm going to lean with the Knicks, so I'm going a little bit chalk here. I don't feel great about either one of those picks, but I think we're going to get 2 really good series. I feel like Knicks-Pacers is going to be really entertaining, but has the chance to be a little bit sloppier, whereas I feel like we're going to get some, pinnacle of basketball matchups between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets, and I'm really looking forward to it. Now, Knicks and Pacers, I believe, don't tip off until Monday, so we have some time until that. We'll be back on the show live before we actually get to that, but the Timberwolves and Nuggets are tipping off tomorrow night, so we will definitely give you thoughts on the Game 1 matchup there. We're going to have the results from the other 2 first-round series that are taking place by then. So there's going to be a ton to get to on Monday. So we will definitely dive into all of that. But that is all we have for today. Thank you very much for tuning in to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Thank you to the GSMC Sports Network for allowing us to host this show. We run live every weekday, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So definitely be sure to catch us. Remember to like, follow, subscribe. Check us out on social media for more exclusive short content as well. And we will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Let's go. little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.